Sasha, I'm so happy you're here. First
Likewise.
of all, I am very grateful to be speaking with you because I remember one of the very first videos that I saw of Sasha Meets Russia. And I can't remember, I think I was still back in Texas.
Really?
And you were talking about a bear and
Yes.
bare necessities.
Of course.
I loved that video.
Oh, thank you.
That was amazing. It was, it was cute. It was fun, and it just showed the best of Russia from an American. I mean, you speak obviously fluent English without an accent, and I was like, "Who is Sasha? Who is Sasha Meets Russia?" And so I'm just curious to know because, like I said, it took one video, immediate fan. So
really glad.
how did Sasha Meet Russia or Sasha Meets Russia come to be?
So I grew up in the West and I lived abroad my whole life. And I came across a lot of people who had very negative stereotypes about Russia, very, a lot of misconceptions. And it was always my goal. I've always wanted to show Russia from a different perspective and from one that I know to be true. So this actually started in high school. Every summer I would go visit my grandparents in Siberia. I would take a lot of pictures. I would bring them back and show my class and my teachers and be like, look, Siberia is not a frozen wasteland. It was actually hotter here this summer than back in New Hampshire. And I want to show you guys that it's not so scary after all. Yes, we have bears, especially in Siberia, but they're not walking around on the streets, here in Moscow especially. And so it was always my goal to show Russia from a positive light. And so when I actually moved here, I decided to open a YouTube channel and to just start making videos and start showing it to the world. And people like you and others from different countries started seeing it and started having this, urge to travel here and maybe even move here. And that's really been my goal, is just to show Russia and make people fall in love with Russia the way that I have.
Wonderful. And you do such an amazing job.
Thank you.
Of it. Your ability to tell a story is amazing. So yeah, I love it. So speaking of which, when you traveled to Siberia during the summers in high school and you would come back to school and you would show these pictures and tell these stories, what did your friends say? What did the teachers have to say? What was their reaction?
Well, every year when I would tell people that I was going to Siberia, first of all, I've had teachers say, like, don't forget your fur coat, oh, it's going to be dangerous. Like, why would you go there in the summer? But when I would come back and show them and these pictures and videos, and of course, back then also on Instagram, I would post just on my personal account to show my friends. A lot of people started really becoming curious and asking me about Russia. And, some of my teachers would also become more informed about it. And in their geography classes, maybe they wouldn't discuss Russia in such a way. But again, the topic of the Cold War was never discussed when I was in the classroom because they knew I would go after them. And so things like this, in high school, there was a lot of people knew that I was like kind of the Russian. And so, but in a way, many did see it in a positive light because of, the pictures and videos that I showed my classmates.
So you are of Russian heritage.
Yeah. My mother is from Siberia. Yes.
From Siberia. And your father is?
From Texas.
Yeehaw.
The best combination.
Yeehaw. May I ask what part of Texas?
He's from Dallas and Houston.
Wow. Another Highland Park guy. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's great. So, off topic, do you have family in Texas?
Yes, I have my aunt that still lives in Texas. My step-grandmother lives in Texas, my cousins. So yes, I still have family there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so you mentioned that they wouldn't talk about the Cold War.
No.
During your high school time.
If I was in the classroom.
If you were in the classroom.
Yeah.
So what time period is this? What years?
This was around 2014, 15, and I graduated in 2016.
Okay, so this is about the time that there was a big change in Ukraine.
Yes.
through Maidan.
Yeah.
Were you familiar with that at all?
Yes, I was familiar. I always kept myself updated with the news. My mother also has, she studied in Ukraine her university years, and we have a lot of friends and even some family in Ukraine. So we were always keeping in touch with them. And actually, I think it was my junior or senior year, a Ukrainian journalist actually came to my high school with his team of journalists, and they decided to hold an assembly and actually tell young children about the Maidan, but in a very, propaganda way, in a very anti-Russian way. And of course, he didn't expect that there was a Russian in that room, in that assembly. And I stood out and I called him out in Russian. And so you should have seen like the look on their faces when I did that, because for them, it was just like, they thought they were coming here to this small town in the US and they were going to preach this and, convince these kids a complete lie. And then they were going, and then here I was, a Russian, basically looking them in the eyes and saying, "What are you doing?" And it was but I don't regret doing that. And he actually even went on the radio of my local town to even, say more lies. And even back then, why was the government sponsoring these people to come to high schools and say this kind of stuff? Like, what is the message behind that? Why? So, yeah.
And then looking back now from what we know about USAID and the way that they have sponsored propaganda programs abroad and also for American consumption as well now. So I'm not surprised that happened.
Yeah, even back then.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. We know of Sasha Meets Russia, and we know of your content, and we know of the stories that you create. But I feel that on X, because I see you there now, and we'll talk about how you got deplatformed and stuff like that. But I see a lot of people, and of course we know where it's originated from, that want to dehumanize you and call you a propagandist or label you this or that, you're Kremlin stooge or whatever.
I've heard it all.
But what I want to do is I'd like to show the viewers a human, from a human point of view. Sasha's a real person. And she has a very unique perspective because, as you stated, you lived around the world and you come from a multicultural background, family, from 2 different continents. That's amazing. So what would you like people to know about who Sasha is?
Well, when you say the word dehumanize, I think it's interesting because I feel like most of the world doesn't just dehumanize, I guess, me, but also Russians and Russia in general. And again, like my goal, as I've written even on X, is to humanize Russia and to humanize Russians, because we've seen this happen a lot in World War II, for example, when rhetoric was used against Russians or against others, calling them cockroaches or other words, just to make it easier for a crime to be done, to be committed against these people. And I think the same thing is happening now, where the world is trying to dehumanize Russia to justify the war and justify, attacking Russia as well. I guess what I would like them to know about me is that I don't have any ill intentions with what I'm doing. It's not propaganda if it's my life, if it's what I'm showing, if it's what I'm actually experiencing. If someone wants to take it that way, that's on them. But I guess, me showing my cat is suddenly propaganda, for example. Me showing that there are beautiful places in Russia aside from Moscow is also considered propaganda. But I want them to know that that's just not the case. And I've always been like this. And I've always loved Russia. I've always been very outspoken about that since I could talk. Anyone who knows me can verify. And I don't have to be paid to do that. I would be doing this no matter what, because I have been doing this my whole life. It's, something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of both countries. And the only thing that I'd really want is for that friendship to happen, because I can see it happen. I know it's possible, but this dehumanization is the reason why we're seeing all these problems today.
How many languages do you speak?
So I speak fluently English and Russian, and I can understand most French, and I'm learning and speaking Spanish.
Tell me, why are you learning Spanish?
So it's a very interesting story. When I moved to Moscow, within the first 2 months of moving here, I met someone with a very similar story to mine. Someone who moved here because he wanted to experience living in Russia and he loved Russia, but he wasn't Russian. He was half Mexican, half Spanish. And so we really bonded over that. And now, 2 years later after we met, he became my husband. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary
Congratulations.
of marriage a week ago. And his name is Domingo. And so that is why I'm learning Spanish. He's also learning Russian. So I think it's very important if you marry someone of a different culture, as a sign of respect, you should learn their language because it opens up, who that person is. I feel like every language is kind of a personality. When I am speaking English, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit different than when I'm speaking Russian. And so for me, it's really important to know Spanish so I can also speak to his family. And if we have kids, so that they know they have no choice. They'll have to be trilingual. So, yeah.
Я согласен.
Да.
100%.
Отлично.
It's easier now. Just on a side note, I've been learning Russian. I'm not fluent in any way, but it's easier for me to speak Russian than it is Spanish.
Really?
I have to change gears.
Yes, I understand that.
So hard. And it's interesting, this is a side note for the conversation, but when I first came to Russia, Spanish is my second language, and I would hear somebody speaking Russian to me, and I would answer in Spanish.
It's normal, yeah. When I lived in Belgium, I was studying in Brussels. I had to learn French. But then when I started learning Spanish, I had this mix of French and Spanish, and the brain doesn't know which one to pick.
It's fun. It's fun. I went to Mexico when I went back to Texas this past December, and went to a restaurant, and I started ordering in Russian.
That's amazing.
It's like wrong language. So you mentioned something earlier that really stuck out to me, is that you moved to Russia before your parents did.
Yeah.
Tell me about that story.
So I studied 1 year of university in Boston, and I was around 18. So after that first year, I realized I absolutely do not want to continue my education in the US. First of all, it was outrageously expensive, and I just couldn't justify paying off those debts. I mean, even some of my professors were still paying off their debts. And so I was, just no. And I also didn't really know what I wanted from life. I didn't know who I wanted to be. And so I didn't feel ready to take on that kind of I didn't feel ready to commit to something, so expensive and so serious. And also, when I was in university, that was the first year that Trump got elected. And I saw how absolutely crazy everyone went. We had a day of mourning in my school.
Wow.
Everyone was wearing black. Our classes were canceled. There were classes for therapy groups. And I was thinking okay, this is happening because someone got elected.
Incredible.
People are actually losing their minds over a president to this extent. And it just made me feel like the society around me is very unhealthy and this is very toxic. And so I just couldn't really see myself staying in and studying in that kind of environment. Also, there was a lot of Russophobia that I actually experienced, even more so in my university, I would say, than high school, where, for example, after Trump got elected, I was speaking English. After Trump got elected, I was speaking Russian to one of my classmates because he was Russian speaking. And my teacher, when she heard that, she actually called us out and told us we were not allowed to speak Russian anymore. And she was teaching international relations.
Wow.
So what does that say?
Wow.
And I realized I would have to actually deny a part of myself if I want to be successful in my studies and later on in a career. And I would never, be willing to do that. So I decided I'm going to go and try living in Russia and maybe even study there. So when I was 19, I finished my first year of university in the US, and I told my parents I'm just going to leave. And I have no idea how they accepted that. But I guess, it was their intuition, their parents, parent instinct. So they let me go, and I left alone at 19. I went to St. Petersburg and I taught English. I did a gap year. And while I was there, my parents came to visit me. My mom was always, she always wanted to move back to Russia. She had this hope. But my father, a Texan, of course, he's traveled the world and everything, but I could never picture him living in Russia. But when he came to St. Petersburg and saw how much more advanced it had become compared to US cities, how much more safer, cleaner, and just, even the cultural aspect, the arts, because my parents are very artistic, he realized like, okay, this could be home. I can see myself living here. And so after that, they started planning their move, and now they've been living in St. Petersburg for 5 years.
Wow. That's amazing. So you paved the way for your parents to come to Russia.
And not just my parents. After them, 4 other families from our Orthodox church in Russia followed me and my parents and also moved to Russia. So
wow. So 4 other families who were in America.
Yeah, who knew us after we moved. They used that as an example, and they also moved with their children.
Wow. That is amazing. Now, had your father obviously been married to a Russian? Had he been to Russia before?
Yes, he came, not St. Petersburg. He's been to Siberia. So he visited, his in-laws, my grandparents. But he always, loved Russia, had respect for Russia. And my father, he lived 20 years in China also, because I was born in Hong Kong. I spent my childhood there. I was there for 9 years. And so my father, moving to a new country was not necessarily such a scary thing for him, but he saw what was happening to his home country, the United States, and he realized that this is not exactly a country that I can see for the future of also my youngest child, my younger brother. And I think that was really a factor of why he decided to leave.
That was a big motivation for him. Most people, and I'll just say most Americans, have forgotten or never really been taught geography.
Yeah, that's true.
And I will include myself in that group because I never realized just how large Russia is. It's incredibly large. So Siberia, as we were talking about, from Moscow, which is on the western border of Russia, is like 6-7 hours by plane away from Moscow. And you're nowhere near the end of Russia. You're like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Incredibly
it's
large. Huge. So your public persona as Sasha Meets Russia, I first saw your video on YouTube, but if I were to look you up on YouTube, you're no longer there.
No.
So what happened?
Well, democracy happened. Yeah.
Interesting.
Basically, certain people, I would say, were not really happy with the success I was having on YouTube and the fact that I was really promoting Russia in such a positive light in English. And so my YouTube channel got banned. I had around 100,000 subscribers at that point, but I made a new one, and that one got banned as well this year. And so they just keep banning me. And then they banned all my other social media as well.
Wow. So you've been deplatformed not only from YouTube, but
everywhere.
Were you on Instagram?
Yes. My Instagram was the most popular one. I had almost 300,000 subscribers on Instagram.
Wow.
And in 1 week, they took down all my channels, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everything was shut down with no warning or explanation.
Incredible.
To this day, I still haven't had an explanation from them. I tried to appeal many times, but to no avail.
Did you have a TikTok?
Yes, I had a TikTok. It was also around 200,000 subscribers, and they took it down the same week. It all happened in March of this year. It was kind of like this, almost as if someone conspired to take me down everywhere they could in like one moment. And that's exactly what they did, which was quite a shame because I wasn't posting about politics. I was posting travel content, lifestyle content, interviews with babushkas. I don't know how that's dangerous, but for them, I guess that was enough because I was making people fall in love with Russia. And I guess right now that's the biggest crime that you can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bare necessities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that video.
How is me singing to a bear a threat?
Incredible.
Please explain.
Incredible. And so now I see that you are on X,
Yes.
formerly Twitter. And how is that experience going?
Oof. Well, as I said, I wasn't political until they made me political. And now on X, I guess I would say I'm a little bit more political, a little bit more outspoken. Those who know me in real life know I've always been that way, but I've always tried to keep it, more lighthearted and fun on other channels. But on X, that went out the window. But I've also, posted the same kind of content that I would on Instagram. I've gotten more hate on X than I have on any other platform. Basically just the most vile things you can think of. That's all been directed at me. My family has gotten threats from my presence on X. And it's just absolutely disgusting. But at the same time, I think if you're a blogger in Russia and posting content in a foreign language in a positive way, that's to be expected. You have to have thick skin because it's just, comes with the job, unfortunately.
So I've noticed on X that a lot of your posts seem to be more of a geopolitical nature rather than just cultural or Russian tradition and things like that. And what has brought that out of Sasha? So what are you seeing now that you say, okay, I'm doing culture, I'm doing Russian tradition, I'm doing cute little videos, but now I want to talk about geopolitics or something that's a little more hard edge?
Well, that was never my goal. I was never trying to position myself as any kind of expert in geopolitics, but the act itself of censoring someone is political. What they did to me is political. There's a reason behind that. And so coming onto X, I had to acknowledge that. And when I see what's happening on X and how people are speaking about my country, about all these lies about Russia, all this propaganda, I just couldn't stay silent because I think if you're silent, you're automatically taking the side of, the enemy. I guess I can say that, but that's why I started speaking out more. Of course, I still post cultural things and lifestyle things and things that I actually enjoy posting because I'm not a political expert, but I've always had an opinion. And there's a reason, why even in high school, my teachers wouldn't discuss the Cold War with me because they knew that I would never stay silent.
Wow. So you're kind of reacting to the fact that they brought the fight to you.
Exactly. I'll fight back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how has that impacted your viewership? Many of your followers, obviously from the beginning, have been following Sasha Meets Russia because of your content and your non-political content. But now that you're on X, which is in and of itself a political platform, how has that affected your viewership?
Well, I think the audience on X is very different from the audience that you have on Instagram or TikTok. And I do have channels on those platforms again. So I just keep doing it over and over. Whenever they block me, I make a new one. And on X, the audience is just different. So you have to kind of also appeal to the platform that you're posting on. So for me, it honestly hasn't been that drastic of a change. And I think many people actually appreciate now that I do start saying, what I really think. Of course, many don't like it, but, if they don't like it, they can always just unfollow.
Unfollow, absolutely. What is Sasha's life like when she's not filming content or posting on X or Instagram and things like that? What do you do for fun?
I am probably horseback riding.
Horseback riding?
Yeah.
Do you own a horse?
Not yet. I really hope so one day. But I'm really into that. And so I take a lot of lessons. And I guess the Texas roots, they're inside me. And that's why, horses are probably my biggest passion outside of content creation.
Wow. Interesting. So what is this that I hear about an art piece or artwork in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg? Tell me about it.
Another thing that I'm really passionate about is photography. When I was living in the US, I actually worked as a photographer for a local newspaper. And so I really like taking pictures, and I traveled to Yamal and I lived for a week with reindeer herders in their kind of chum teepee. And so I was taking a lot of pictures of them with their reindeer and, you know, making content. And some journalists in Russia saw my work and they offered to display it for this cultural forum in the Hermitage. And so
wow,
they put my photos there on display, which was really an honor.
Incredible honor.
Yeah.
Wow. And when was this?
I filmed and took photos of these reindeer herders last November, and the exposition was this past May.
Incredible. Incredible. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So do you still do photography?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, not as much. Now I'm more doing filming, like videography work, but photography has always been my first passion.
What do you use?
I started out with a Canon, then a Nikon, and now I'm on Sony.
In true photographer fashion, you start with one brand and then you just
But
go
what
through them
matters is the lens, and thankfully you can interchange them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Sasha, when did you move to Russia permanently?
It was September of 2023.
So September 2023, and if I recall, this was when Russia had started some mobilization efforts.
Yes, it was all over the media, like, oh, Russians are taking people out of the metro. And so everyone was running to the border. The airports were full. It was a chaotic time. But I actually came here across the border with Estonia. I took a bus with my cat. And so the border patrol guy, when I was crossing the border, they took me into an interview room, and the Russian was asking me, he's like, you know, everyone is like leaving now, so you're coming back. And I was like, yes, I am. So let me in. And yeah, best decision I made.
Wow. So you've seen Russia change over the course of those 2 short years. I first came to Russia in 2018.
Yeah.
The Russia today in 2025 is a much different Russia from 2018. Completely different in a much better way in so many ways. How has it changed, in your opinion, from the time that you first arrived in 2023 to now?
Well, every year I would say Russia is really advancing and really growing in every sphere, even technologically, culturally, everything. And I can even compare it to what I was seeing as a child when we were, going from Moscow to Siberia and then back to the US or to Hong Kong. And even, Moscow has completely changed. It's like a different city, totally different. And also, even my small town in Siberia has changed. New schools, new roads, just everything is changing. And I think it's changing for the best. And for example, my husband, Domingo, he said one of the reasons why he wanted to move to Russia was he would come to Russia first as a tourist, and every time he kept coming back, he would see how much the country is advancing compared to other countries. And he realized, okay, Russia is the future. They're actually investing in this country. They're investing in the future of this country for their citizens. And so that was really also what motivated him to move here, because he saw that happen in real time. And so did I. And to this day, Moscow especially is just like changing every single day rapidly.
It's incredible. And there's construction going on everywhere. It's almost nonstop.
Yeah.
Do you still keep in contact with any of your friends back in the United States?
In the United States, we keep in contact on Instagram, but not as closely as we used to. I keep in close touch with some of my childhood friends from Hong Kong and also from Belgium. So. And
have any of them expressed any reservations about you and your safety here in Russia?
No, a lot of them actually really want to come visit. So
Fantastic.
I hope one day they can.
It's my sincere desire for every American to come visit Russia, come visit Moscow at least once in your life. It should be on everyone's bucket list. And it's so difficult to articulate the reasons why until you come and see it for yourself.
I mean, even Tucker Carlson, when he came here, the look on his face, he was shocked. And every time I see a foreigner come here, you can just see the stereotypes breaking before their eyes. And
it's incredible.
It's just wonderful because all that, all those lies, everything they've been taught their whole life just gets erased because they see the reality, they see the truth. And I think it's important for us as bloggers, as people who moved here, to show that truth even to those who cannot come and visit. And I think that's extremely important for Russia, to change their image and change their perception abroad. Because, for example, if you take a country like Japan, when you think of Japan, you probably think of Hello Kitty and anime, but everyone forgets what happened in World War II and, that they were a colonial power, the atrocities that they committed. And I think, Russia hasn't done that, and they have this horrible image abroad that needs so desperately to be changed.
So if I may say this, you are a bit of a media celebrity in Russia, especially here in Moscow, because I've seen you interviewed with a variety of Russian media, and you get interviewed a lot. What question have you wished had been asked of you that hasn't already been asked?
Can I say this one? I have no idea. I guess I'll know when I finish this interview. I'll get back to you on that.
You speak to Americans all the time. You speak to the world. You speak to Westerners in particular because your channel is in English.
Yeah.
What is it that you want them to know? Is this something for them, or is this really more for Sasha?
This is definitely for them, and this is definitely to change the image of Russia abroad, as I've said, because I just think, the U.S. has Hollywood. The U.S. has their amazing movies. A lot of people you speak to that are living in other countries think the U.S. is exactly how they see it in the movies, because the U.S. has done such a good job doing that through their, you can say it's kind of a propaganda as well.
It is.
Because it's not the reality when you go live in the U.S. And Russia needs to do that as well. And I think one of the ways it can do that is through bloggers like me, like you, like other expats that moved here, to show people back home, people in other countries, this is what it's like. I'm an American in Russia. This is what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing in real time. And you shouldn't believe all this, crazy media and the fact that Russians are villains and all this stuff, because we have way more in common than we have different. So I think that's why I'm doing it, because someone has to. And I think Russia really needs to, I think they need to work on their public image abroad, because countries like the US and Japan have a great PR team, and Russia needs that too.
American propaganda is extremely effective.
Extremely.
Because it has colored the way Americans view Russians.
Yeah. And just the fact that everyone knows what is an American dream. I mean, the whole world, the fact that they were able to convince everyone of that, to move here for the American dream, that's just incredible.
Yeah, it really is. They're absolute masters of marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess us as Americans, we should use that, our skills in marketing, but to help Russia instead.
Absolutely. I believe that 110%. And I support you in that as well. So you went to school in America, high school and early university in the mid-teens, 20 teens. And this is it not exactly the height of it, but certainly the mid part of wokeness in America.
Yeah.
And how can you compare? I think I read a post that you made on X recently that the word woke
doesn't exist in Russian.
It doesn't even translate.
No, we don't have that
into Russian.
Yeah, we don't believe in that nonsense. No.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, how can you compare Russian society that is so non-woke because it doesn't exist to America?
Well, I think the reason why woke doesn't exist in Russia, because Russians are just too direct. Like, they're very honest. There's no way that a Russian is going to, step around your toes and be all sweet and happy and give everyone a gold star. Russians are very to the point, especially if you've ever spoken to a Russian babushka. They are savage. They have no filter. They will say what they're thinking. So if you try to teach a Russian babushka how to be woke, goodbye. Like, I'll pray for you because there's just no way. And in the US, I feel like people have just been so conditioned to be so fake in a way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being polite, but this wokeness is just gotten out of control. You know, it's really brainwashed people. People cannot say what's on their mind. They cannot speak freely. They have no freedom of speech. And it's a way of controlling people. That's what I think it is. It's just a way of control.
Russians are not, as we could say as Americans, politically correct.
No.
Because I could hear Russians say, what does political have to do with being correct?
Exactly.
You know, it's like, it just doesn't compute. The two words don't go together. But then again, as we've said before, Americans are so good at PR.
Yeah.
So we put these words together, woke, politically correctness, and things like that.
I would say being this woke thing is almost an epidemic because it's reaching other countries as well. Just like in Europe, you cannot, even define what a woman is. I mean, what is happening to our society where we cannot say what a woman is, something that we've known for our entire, life as humans. And so this is really just, I feel like the world has gone mad, to be honest.
And that brings up a very good point about gender and how in Russia, there's two genders.
Of course. Try telling anyone there isn't. They'll put you in a mental hospital.
End of story. What is your perception of gender roles between, just generally speaking, between Russians and Americans?
I would say that Russia is actually a lot more feminist than the United States in a good way, in the way that feminism should be, which is that a woman, as a woman, can choose what she wants. She can be a mother and she can also have a career. She can have paid maternity leave if she needs it. And these are things that we don't have for women in the United States. And so if feminism is about supporting women and uplifting women, then, it doesn't exist in the United States. But in Russia, we really do see this. We see women in high positions in the government, in the corporate world, but they still have families and they're still feminine and they don't have to lose that side of themselves because they're proud of being women, because they know what a woman is. But in the United States, where you erase all that and you try to make everyone the same, and you also put down men, young men, especially young Christian men, then you get a society which is completely lost and completely, just sick in a way. And so that there is no real feminism in the United States because they cannot even define what a woman is.
That's very true. And I've had a couple of women friends in America tell me that in order to succeed in the corporate world, that they have to suppress femininity.
Of course, yeah.
And take on more masculine roles and ways of expression to survive.
Yeah, I mean, even in university in Belgium, when I would wear dresses or skirts, I would get comments like, oh, why are you trying so hard? Why are you, like, they would think that I was dumber just because I would dress more feminine.
Really?
As if, but that's exactly feeding into what they're not trying, what they don't want. So you're saying that a feminine woman is dumb, so you're putting down women. But in Russia, women are proud of being feminine. They are proud of being women, and they are not ashamed of that because they're not made to feel ashamed for that.
One of my perceptions that was shattered when I first came to Russia, and it's on the same lines, is that when I went back to Texas, my friends asked me, what's Russia like? And I said, well, it's a place where men can be men and women are women.
How controversial in this day and age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sasha, as a Russian American woman, what are the differences, in your opinion, between Russian and American women? Well,
currently, I would say it definitely has to do with fashion. I think in Russia, women definitely have a better fashion sense. However, I would say in southern states in the US, women are also very fashionable and they're still very feminine, which brings me to the point where, I mean, my grandmother was from Texas and she was a very classy lady and she loved to dress well and she was very feminine as well. And she's a lot like my Russian grandmother. I mean, if they met, they would love each other's fashion sense. And so the thing is that era of women, I feel like in the US has been lost. That was a different time. Now, that generation. And now I feel like the current American women, they are not like that anymore. And I feel like, again, they're trying to be more like men. Whereas Russian women, we don't need to do it like that. And so I think that's very sad. I would also say a lot of American women are quite a lot more liberal than Russian women. But again, I guess that depends on where they grew up, where they live. And me, as someone who is a mix of both, I would say my American woman side maybe is a bit more outspoken, whereas I guess my Russian side is a lot more, feminine. And yeah, so
I read a statistic once, and I don't remember the numbers, but it was incredibly high of how many. I think this was a poll of American women between the ages of 20 and 30, and the percentage that did not want to have a family.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Was incredibly high. It was in the 45%. And that's the end of America.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, a lot of the people I grew up with in the US, they definitely don't see traditional families in the way that they see them in Russia. And it's really sad. But again, that generation of women who we in the 50s and in the 60s and before that generation is unfortunately lost.
Absolutely.
And I would say that the American dream was lost with them.
Yeah, I can say, well, I can't say, but I'll say it anyway. There's more of an opportunity to fulfill the American dream in Russia than it is in America.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to qualify right now and state it, but you'll have to come here and experience it to understand what that means.
I always think of Russia as kind of like this new frontier. Like once upon a time, people were, in the Wild West. Well, now we're in the Wild East. And it really does feel like that way when you move here.
Do you feel hopeful in the current political environment that East and West will ever come together?
In a perfect world, yes. But realistically, I'm not so sure. Maybe I would say perhaps in the United States, there are people that really do want to have that friendship with Russia. But countries, especially European countries, are always getting in the middle of that. And I just think there's so many factors and so many people that want to see Russia fail that ultimately it will take a very, very strong person to mend those relations. And right now, I'm not sure that there's a person like that who can do it.
Do you believe that there may come a time when the world, and I'm talking about the Eastern world, Russia and the global South, talking about BRICS nations, just simply give up on America and say, okay, we need to move forward. We're moving forward without you. Where do you think that leaves America? And would that cause them to come to their senses, so to speak? Or do you think that this trajectory, this downhill trajectory that America has chosen is just going to continue?
Well, that's a very complex question, but I think that, the global South has always been more about inclusion than about dividing people. And I think if the United States was to have a more positive and friendly approach, then I'm sure the Global South wouldn't be opposed to actually working with them instead of against them. But unfortunately, what we're seeing now, I feel that the United States wants to be kind of the number one power, the king of the world. And in today's current state and today's rise of the Global South, as you said, that's just not a world that we live in anymore. No one can be this king anymore. There's no sheriff that's governing every country. And so if they can put that kind of colonial mindset behind them and really work together, then I think there is hope and there is a future for all of us. But if they can't, and if they're going to be arrogant about it, then unfortunately, I do feel the US will get left behind.
Sasha, I saw that you did some street interviews around the time of the election in America.
Yeah.
And what were you asking?
I was
Russians?
asking if they would rather vote for Kamala or Trump if they could vote in the US, and why.
And what was the what were the answers you were getting?
So actually, a lot of people did not say Trump. Many did say Trump, but those who said no were saying it because they saw him more as a showman, as a comedian, and not as someone serious for, international relations. However, they also didn't like Kamala, and the number one response I got was actually Putin. They said,
I'd support that.
They said he should just be the leader of both. But those who did say Trump, they were very, they saw him as this businessman who can really fix relations, because he was really outspoken about that in the beginning.
Sure.
I'll solve the war in 24 hours. Yeah, how did that go? And so it was a lot of different responses. A lot of people were hopeful, but there were a lot that said that it just looked like a joke. There was one babushka who said, after Biden, this is the best they could find. The US has completely lost their marbles. We even have better candidates in our village than what they have in the US.
Wow.
They were just like, what is happening? Like, how is this real? How are these the candidates that the U.S. has as the president?
It's almost seems like a comedy show.
It's like a reality TV show, and
reality
I feel like
TV show.
most politics
off the
are
rails.
like that these days. It's turned into a reality TV show. Yeah.
Do you find that, in general, the Russians that you speak with, the Russians that you interact with, do they even care who the president is?
Honestly, some do. But again, in these interviews, some people said that they don't really care because it doesn't really affect them or involve them, and that they have more pressing matters to be worrying about in their own country at home here in Russia than who is the next leader of the US. Although I did tell them it does directly affect you because of politics and what's happening in the world, but many Russians, I think, they're not as involved. But there are many that are also involved, so it really depends.
There are a few Russians who are quite vocal about American politics and very pro-MAGA, pro-Trump.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion of Russians who would support Trump and the MAGA movement?
Well, I would say a lot of these really diehard MAGA fans, no matter what country they're from, is a little bit cultish in my opinion. I don't think you should blindly support a leader in that regard. And those Russians who are very pro-MAGA, I think they just really want to have a president in the United States that is going to treat Russia as, a good partner and not put Russia down. And I think they're just maybe a little bit naive, to be honest. I was also hopeful about Trump. I can't say that I'm a huge fan. I don't like Kamala either. But I was only hopeful in the regard that our countries would somehow have better relations. And I'm still hopeful about that, no matter who the leader is. But I think a lot of it was just talk and not a lot of walk. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So...
Yeah, I was quite hopeful after the election.
Most Americans were.
Because there was, as you said, a lot of positive talk.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went off the rails.
Exactly. A lot of Americans that I know living in Russia were really hopeful that, okay, finally, you know, there might be some kind of peace between us at least, and nothing of the sort.
You mentioned when you were doing the street interviews about who they were supporting for president, and some of the people that you spoke to said Putin.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting because, of course, Russia and President Putin are both demonized in the West. You know, he's a dictator, you know, he's this, he's that.
Yeah.
And we've also heard some people say, well, Trump is acting like a dictator. But if Trump is a dictator and Putin is a dictator, who's the more effective dictator, in your opinion?
I think the term dictator gets thrown around so much that people have forgot what it actually means. I think that neither Trump nor Putin are dictators. I feel like they have both been elected by the majority of their countries. I think the real dictators are the ones who have been in power illegitimately, like our neighboring country, for example. That's a dictator. That's a regime. People should really look into what's going on in Ukraine, because that is a dictatorship. And many Ukrainians are saying that it is. I mean, I have sources in Ukraine, people that I speak to, family, and the things that people are going on, like living through there, the hell that they're going through, that's a dictatorship. You don't see that in Russia. You don't see that in the United States. We are free. We have freedom, but there people don't have freedom. And even for saying one wrong thing, even just for having a Russian phone number in their phone, they can be thrown in jail with no trial, just for texting a Russian number. If that's not a dictatorship, I don't know what is. So if people want to use the word dictator and dictatorship, just look at Ukraine. That's a real life dictatorship happening for you right now.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of dictatorships, I would argue that you're seeing a lot of more dictatorship events happening now in Europe, for example, where you can be arrested for a tweet. You can be thrown out of your job for not supporting a certain movement. And that is all signs of being a dictatorship. And so in Russia, I don't see that happening. And in the US, I also don't feel like Trump is a dictator. If he is, then maybe not a very good one. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's definitely failing.
Yeah. He could be a better dictator, to be honest.
He could be.
Yeah.
Sasha, thank you for spending some time with Russia Up Close.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a wonderful time here, and you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you. I had a great time too.
Thank you so much.